The icy coffin shattered in a blizzard of crystalline shards, disgorging Louis Simpson's nude form on the deck in a puddle of viscous suspension gel. Gasping and disoriented from his abrupt cryosleep revival, he snatched a breath mask from the pod's emergency kit, lungs heaving with ragged gulps of oxygen. Red alert klaxons shrieked through the SSE Odyssey's corridors, underscoring the AI's chilling pronouncement blaring over the speakers. "Attention! Unknown contact detected. Bridge, respond immediately. This is not a drill." Dripping slime, Louis staggered to his feet and yanked an emergency vacuum suit from the bulkhead locker, sealing it over his bare skin as he sprinted to the command deck, heart pounding. He burst onto the bridge and froze, stunned by the looming alien dreadnought dominating the view screen, easily dwarfing the Odyssey's sleek lines. "This is Yaxa of the Prylorian Special Emissary." A grim voice crackled over the comm. As the craft's running lights flickered a pattern Louis somehow understood as a sign of peace. "Our need is dire. A savage war threatens to annihilate the Galactic Council and its thousands of member species. We've exhausted our options. In a desperate gambit, we turn to you, to the legendary ingenuity and tenacity of humanity." Louis's eyes widened as the Prylorian envoy revealed the staggering stakes. An ancient, immensely powerful artifact called the Cosmoforge lay scattered across treacherous, war-torn worlds. Wielded properly, it could decisively end the conflict, but the Council's expeditions to recover it had all failed disastrously. Several human colonies had already fallen to the marauding enemy, Yaxa divulged, his voice heavy. If the war was not stopped soon, Earth itself would burn. The survival of Louis's entire species hung in the balance. Reeling, he protested that humanity was woefully outmatched by the Council's futuristic tech. Earth had only recently mastered interstellar travel, but the alien countered that human adaptability and unorthodox thinking were precisely what was needed now. Though skeptical of the Council's motives, Louis could not deny the raw desperation in Yaxa's plea, nor the horrifying consequences of inaction. Humanity's fate now hinged on the outcome of this war. Feeling the crushing weight of that responsibility settle on his shoulders, Louis made his choice. He would join this audacious quest to recover the Cosmoforge, no matter the cost. The road ahead would be beyond perilous, but he had no choice. Like it or not, he had just become humanity's champion in a defining conflict that would reshape the galaxy. Drawing a deep breath, Louis met Yaxa's gaze on the view screen and nodded grimly. "I'm in," he said simply. "Let's go get this done." And with that, the SSE Odyssey and the Prylorian craft set off together into the fraught unknown, where Louis's resolve would face the ultimate crucible. The Prylorian craft's interior was a marvel of sleek lines and advanced technology, light years beyond anything Louis had seen on Earth. As he stepped onto the bridge, Yaxa introduced him to the rest of the team. Nyx, the Xylothian pilot, regarded Louis with vibrant, intelligent eyes, her lithe form draped casually in the command chair. Rajek, a mountain of Atorian, gave a curt nod of acknowledgement, his stance radiating coiled power and martial discipline. But it was the sight of another human face that stopped Louis cold. "Silas?" he asked incredulously. "Silas Briggs? How the hell—" The engineer cracked a wry grin. "Long story, buddy. Let's just say Prylorian hospitality beats floating dead in a crippled shuttle." As the ship hurtled through the void towards Azeroth Prime, Yaxa gathered the team to brief them on their objective. His voice was solemn as he recounted the Cosmoforge's origins. An ancestral race possessed of godlike power had crafted it as a tool of creation and destruction alike. Recognizing the existential threat it posed, they had fractured it and cast the shards to the cosmic winds. Now, those very fragments might hold the key to salvation. Louis listened, the weight of the mission settling ever heavier on his shoulders. This wasn't just about humanity anymore. The fate of every sapient species in the galaxy rested on their success. And that burden nearly crushed him as they made planetfall on Azeroth Prime. The once vibrant world was now a charnel house, a shattered husk groaning under the boot heel of war. Huddled refugees scattered before the ravening hordes of enemy troops, the desperate and the doomed alike. The devastation was staggering. Rajek took point as they delved into the ruined cityscape, guiding them through rubble-choked streets with grim efficiency. At last they reached the temple, a cyclopean edifice dark with age and the weight of forbidden knowledge. Strange glyphs crawled across its surface, their meaning tantalizingly out of reach. As they stepped across the threshold, an ancient defense system flared to malevolent life. Crimson beams seared the air, and hidden panels disgorged a lethal array of whirring blades and crushing pistons. Lewis's mind raced, calculations flashing through his brain at lightning speed. There, a hairline vulnerability in the control mechanism. A desperate lunge, a frenzied rewiring, and the deadly trap slammed to a halt inches from Nyx's face. She shot him a look of gratitude, her quicksilver eyes wide. But their trials were just getting started. As they breached the inner sanctum, the fragment of the Cosmo Forge pulsing with eldritch light on an onyx plinth, enemy forces boiled into the chamber with guns blazing. There was no time for thought, only the frantic dance of combat. Louis and his team fought with dogged dedication, but the enemy's numbers were telling. In a flash of desperate inspiration, Louis seized upon a plan, directing Silas to rig the temple's support columns with demolition charges. He held off the attackers with Rajek and Nyx, buying precious seconds. Then, with a thunderous roar, the ancient stone gave way, burying their foes under tons of rubble. The fragment was theirs, but the cost had been high. Silas slumped against a shattered column, blood seeping from a wound in his side. Enemy reinforcements were closing in, and their escape route was cut off. Louis gritted his teeth, mind racing. They had come this far. He would not fail now. Shouldering Silas's weight, he led the team in a harrowing flight through the war-torn city, narrowly evading patrols and artillery strikes. As they staggered back aboard the Prylorian ship, battered and bloody but victorious, the true scope of their quest began to sink in. One fragment down, but how many more remained? And at what price would they be won? As the ship carved a path through the stars towards their next trial, Louis stared out at the infinite void, commitment crystallizing in his heart. Whatever came, whatever horrors the cosmos had in store, he would face them head-on, for Earth, for the galaxy, for all that he held dear. The road ahead would be dark and fraught with peril, but he would walk it to the end. The Prylorian ship's engines flared as it accelerated towards Halcyon 7, leaving a trail of ionized particles in its wake. Louis stood on the bridge, his teeth clenched as he watched Silas's vitals flicker on the medical readout. The engineer's face was ashen, his breathing shallow. ETA to Halcyon 7 medical outpost. 12 minutes, Nyx announced, her slender fingers dancing across the control panel. As they approached the gleaming spires of the Prylorian facility, a transmission crackled through the comms. "This is Dr. Zara Valen. I've prepped the trauma bay. Bring your wounded directly to Level 3. The ship had barely touched down when a team of Prylorian medics swarmed aboard, whisking Silas away on a hovering gurney. Louis moved to follow, but Yaxa's hand on his shoulder stopped him. "Let them work," the Prylorian said, his voice grave. "We have matters to discuss." In the ship's conference room, Yaxa's holographic display flickered to life, revealing a star map riddled with angry red markers. "The situation has deteriorated," he began. His words clipped. "The enemy has deployed a new weapon, the null cannon. Entire systems have gone dark." Louis felt the blood drain from his face as the implication sank in. "How many?" "Too many," Yaxa replied, his eyes haunted. "But there's hope. Our cryptographers have partially deciphered an ancient map. It points to a world called Edina as the location of the next Cosmoforge fragment." "Where's Edina?" Louis asked, studying the unfamiliar star patterns. Yaxa's expression tightened. "On the far side of the Maelstrom." Louis had heard whispers of the Maelstrom, a vast, chaotic nebula that had swallowed countless ships. "You're saying we have to go through that?" "We have no choice," Yaxa said. "But our ship needs repairs. We'll need a smaller craft, something that can slip through undetected." Louis nodded, a plan already forming. "I'll take a team. We can use one of the scout ships." As if summoned by his words, Nyx and Rajek entered the room. "Count us in," Nyx said, her quicksilver eyes glinting with perseverance. "You'll need me as well," a new voice added. Dr. Zara Valen stood in the doorway, her iridescent scales shimmering under the harsh lights. My expertise in xenobiology could prove crucial on an uncharted world. Louis surveyed his team, a motley crew of humans and aliens bound by a common purpose. "All right," he said, "let's do this." The scout ship hummed to life, its sleek form barely a shadow against the vast backdrop of space. As they approached the swirling chaos of the maelstrom, Louis's hands tightened on the controls. "Energy storm approaching," Nyx warned, her voice tense. Louis banked hard, narrowly avoiding a tendril of crackling energy that lashed out at them. But they had no time to catch their breath. A cluster of ships appeared on their sensors, closing fast. "Pirates!" Rajek growled, already moving to the weapons station. What followed was a frenetic dance of death and survival. Louis pushed the scout ship to its limits, weaving through the maelstrom's treacherous currents, while Rajek's precise fire kept the marauders at bay. Nyx's tactical readouts guided them through the chaos, finding paths where none seemed to exist. When they finally emerged on the other side, battered but intact, Louis allowed himself a moment of relief. But as Edina came into view, that relief evaporated. The planet was a jewel of impossible beauty, continents of emerald green, oceans of sapphire blue, and mountain ranges that spiraled into the sky in defiance of gravity. But their sensors were screaming warnings of unknown energy signatures. "What is that?" Dr. Valen murmured, leaning forward to study the readouts. Before anyone could answer, an invisible force seized their ship. Louis fought the controls, but it was like trying to wrestle a tsunami. They plummeted towards the surface, the ground rushing up to meet them. With a bone-jarring impact, they crashed on the outskirts of a vast alien city. As the team stumbled from the wreckage, Louis found himself staring up at structures that dwarfed anything he had ever seen. Massive pillars of an unknown opalescent material stretched into the sky, connected by arches that seemed to defy the laws of physics. "By the cosmic core," Dr. Valen breathed, her scientific detachment momentarily shattered by awe. Louis checked their coordinates against the decrypted star map. "We're close," he said. "The fragment should be somewhere in this city." As they ventured deeper into the alien metropolis, Louis couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Eyes seemed to follow them from every shadow, every glint of light on the strange surfaces. They rounded a corner and found themselves facing a vast plaza. In its center stood a structure that pulsed with an inner light, its architecture so alien it hurt to look at directly. "There," Nyx said, pointing. "That has to be it." But as they stepped towards the structure, the ground beneath their feet began to shift. Ancient mechanisms, dormant for eons, groaned to life. The trap was sprung, and Louis and his team found themselves at the mercy of a civilization that had mastered the Cosmoforge itself. In that moment, as reality itself seemed to warp around them, Louis realized that their quest had led them to something far greater and far more dangerous than they could have ever imagined. The alien city's reality warping effects subsided, leaving Louis and his team disoriented but intact. As they regained their bearings, a piercing shriek split the air. Towering figures emerged from the twisting architecture, their metallic bodies pulsing with eerie bioluminescence. "Ancient guardians," Dr. Valen breathed, her scales flashing in alarm. Before Louis could respond, a searing beam of energy lanced towards him. Nyx tackled him, the blast scorching her side as they hit the ground. Louis scrambled to his feet, dragging Nyx behind cover as Rajek opened fire. The Taurian's heavy weapon tore through one guardian, but more activated with each thunderous step. "Fall back!" Louis shouted, supporting Nyx as they retreated. They stumbled into an abandoned structure, its walls etched with intricate glyphs. Dr. Valen's eyes widened as she scanned the markings. This city, it belonged to a precursor race. These might be the original Cosmoforge creators. Louis's mind raced. "Can you decipher anything useful?" The xenobiologist's fingers traced the symbols. "The defenses awakened when we arrived were perceived as threats." Studying the hieroglyphs, a realization struck Louis. There must be a master control center. If we can reach it, we might deactivate the system. He outlined a daring plan, utilizing their ship's experimental tether beam to bypass the Guardian patrols. As Dr. Valen tended to Nyx's wounds, Louis and Rajek prepared for the infiltration. They moved swiftly through the alien corridors, the tether beam allowing them to traverse impossible geometries. At last, they reached the control nexus, a pulsing chamber of crystalline interfaces. As Louis stepped inside, klaxons blared. The air itself seemed to thicken as a massive form materialized before them. An Omega Guardian, its armor gleaming with fractal patterns that hurt to look at directly. Rajek's weapon fire splashed harmlessly off its force fields. Louis dove aside as it unleashed a barrage of energy bolts, the very fabric of space warping around them. "The tether beam!" Louis shouted. He activated the device, ensnaring the behemoth. Using the city's physics-defying architecture, he redirected the beam's energy, overloading the Nexus systems. The chamber trembled, cracks spreading across its surface. The Omega Guardian staggered, its defenses faltering. But alarms echoed throughout the city. The defensive grid was destabilizing, threatening cataclysmic overload. Louis lunged for the control interface, his fingers flying as he downloaded the master codes. A shimmering portal sprang to life just as the room began to collapse. They sprinted through, regrouping with Dr. Valen and Nix. The team staggered aboard their ship, launching into orbit as a vortex of destructive energy consumed the ruins below. From the viewport, they watched in awe as the maelstrom coalesced. At its heart floated a familiar shape, the second Cosmoforge fragment, suspended within a stabilizing containment sphere. As Nix guided their battered craft towards the Prelorian rendezvous coordinates, Louis stared at the gleaming artifact. Each victory brought them closer to their goal, but the mysteries of this lost civilization and its connection to humanity's past deeply affected on his mind. The stars stretched into streaks of light as they entered hyperspace, carrying with them another piece of the cosmic puzzle and the haunting echoes of an ancient legacy. The Prylorian ship's docking bay hissed open, admitting Louis and his team. They stumbled aboard, exhausted but triumphant, the containment sphere cradling the second Cosmoforge fragment held securely in Rajek's massive arms. Yaksa strode forward to meet them, his translucent skin pulsing with an array of colors that betrayed his excitement. "You've done it," he breathed, eyes fixed on the gleaming artifact. Dr. Valen wasted no time. "We need to get this to the lab immediately," she said, already moving towards the ship's research bay. "The energy readings are unlike anything I've ever seen." Hours later, the team gathered around a holographic display of the fragment's quantum structure. Dr. Valen's iridescent scales shimmered as she manipulated the image. "These signatures? They're not just advanced, they're practically impossible." A familiar voice joined the discussion. "Not impossible," Silas said, limping into the room. His face was pale, but his eyes burned with intensity. "Just beyond our current understanding." Louis started forward. "Silas, you should be resting." The engineer waved him off. "This is more important." He tapped a series of commands into the console, overlaying a new set of data onto the hologram. "Look familiar?" Yaksa's eyes widened. "These are energy matrices from human theoretical physics. But how—" "Exactly," Silas said. "Whoever built the Cosmoforge, they weren't just advanced. They had mastered concepts our brightest minds have only begun to grasp. We're talking about a level of cosmic transcendence that makes our current technology look like stone tools." The implications hung heavy in the air. Louis opened his mouth to respond, but a harsh alarm cut him off. Nix's fingers flew across the communications panel. "Priority message from the Galactic Council," she announced. A holographic figure materialized. Counselor Vex, her tentacles writhing with agitation. "We've decrypted coordinates for the third fragment," she said without preamble. "It's on Kratur 4. Louis felt his blood run cold. Everyone knew about Kratur 4, a world shattered by the enemy's null cannon, now a radioactive hellscape of planetary debris. "The atmosphere is poison," Rajek growled. "The radiation would fry our systems in minutes." Silas's eyes gleamed with the fire of a new challenge. "Not if we upgrade our gear. Yaksa, your people have shielding tech that could work, right?" The Prylorian nodded slowly. "Yes, but we lack key components. The only place to find them would be—" "The Veil," Nix finished, her quicksilver eyes narrowing. The asteroid field. Pirate territory. Louis stood, decision made. Then that's where we're going. Nix, plot a course. Rajek, prep the strike shuttles. We're going shopping. The Veil lived up to its reputation. Massive asteroids tumbled through the void, concealing ruthless raiders and desperate scavengers. Louis piloted the lead shuttle, every sense on high alert. A burst of weapons fire erupted from a nearby cluster of rocks. "Ambush!" Rajek roared, returning fire with brutal efficiency. Louis wrenched the controls, narrowly avoiding a spread of missiles. "Nix, we need an exit vector." "On it," her voice crackled through the comms. "There's a gap in the field, but it's closing fast. We've got maybe 30 seconds. Louis gritted his teeth. "Then let's make them count." What followed was a symphony of destruction. Rajek's pinpoint accuracy kept the pirates at bay, while Louis threaded an impossible path through the asteroids. Metal shrieked as their hull scraped past jagged outcroppings, but they emerged on the other side, battered but victorious. As they limped back to the Prylorian ship, a new threat loomed on their sensors. A massive enemy flotilla decloaked, weapons already charging. "They must have tracked us," Silas said, his face grim. "We'll never outrun them with our engines damaged." Louis's mind raced. "The fragments," he said suddenly. "Silas, can we use them as some kind of power source?" The engineer's eyes widened. "It's insane, but maybe. If we overload the quantum matrices, we might be able to create a localized energy surge." "Do it," Louis ordered. Alarms blared as enemy fire pummeled their shields. Silas worked feverishly, jury-rigging connections between the fragments and the ship's power core. "Ready," he shouted. "But this is going to be one hell of a kick." Louis slammed his hand down on the activation switch. For a moment, nothing happened. Then reality itself seemed to bend. A wave of pure energy erupted from their ship, washing over the enemy fleet. Drive cores sputtered and died, leaving the massive vessels drifting helplessly. "Now's our chance," Louis said, fighting to keep his voice steady. "Get us to Crater 4, fast." The jump to hyperspace was rough, their overtaxed engines protesting every second. When they emerged, the shattered remnants of Crater 4 filled their view screen, a graveyard of a world. Surface scans quickly pinpointed the fragment's location. Louis led the team down in environmental suits, their upgraded shielding barely holding against the lethal radiation. They found the artifact nestled in the heart of a massive impact crater. As Rajek lifted it free, the ground beneath their feet began to shake. "The core!" Dr. Valen shouted, her voice tight with fear. "The fragment's energy signature is destabilizing what's left of the planet." Geysers of lava erupted around them as they fought their way back to the shuttle. The very air seemed to ignite, radioactive particles setting the sky ablaze. They were almost to safety when the first mutants attacked, horrifically twisted creatures, warped by radiation and the lingering effects of the null cannon. Louis fired his weapon again and again, each shot finding its mark, but there seemed to be no end to the horde. With a final burst of desperate speed, they reached the shuttle. Louis slammed the hatch controls, sealing out the nightmarish cacophony of Crater's death throes. As they rocketed back into orbit, the planet below them tore itself apart in a cataclysm of fire and twisted space-time. In the aftermath, they drifted amid the debris field, their ship's systems pushed far beyond their limits. Louis stared out at the cosmic carnage, 3 Cosmoforge fragments now secured, but at a terrible cost. A priority alert flashed on the main console. Louis's heart sank as he read the message. Somehow, the enemy had tracked their trajectory, and they were deploying something new, a techno-virus that could infect both organic and synthetic systems. He looked at his battered crew, commitment etched on every face. Whatever came next, they would face it together. The cosmic chess game for the destiny of the universe had entered its most dangerous phase yet. The techno-virus struck with brutal efficiency. Alarms blared as ship systems flickered and died, one by one. Louis gripped the command console, fighting to maintain control as the virus wormed its way through their defenses. "We're losing life support," Nix shouted, her fingers flying over emergency controls. Dr. Valen hunched over her lab station. eyes flicking between multiple screens. It's not just attacking our tech. The virus is attempting to rewrite our cellular structures at a molecular level. Louis felt a chill run down his spine. Options? Aldara, Silas rasped, his face pale with effort as he battled to keep their engines online. The Prylorian outpost. They have advanced biodefense research. With no time to debate, Louis made the call. Set course, maximum speed. Their crippled ship limped through space, systems failing with each passing moment. Louis could feel an alien presence clawing at the edges of his consciousness, the techno-virus seeking purchase in his mind. Aldara loomed before them, a frozen moon orbiting a gas giant. Their landing was more of a controlled crash, the ship's hull screaming as it skidded across icy plains. Move, Louis ordered, helping Rajek drag Silas from the wreckage. They staggered toward the looming edifice of the research facility, each breath painful in the frigid air. The facility's airlock hissed open. A tall, willowy figure stood silhouetted against harsh interior light. I am Dr. Nayla Derricks, she announced, her voice clinical. You've brought quite the problem to my doorstep. Inside, Louis explained their dire situation as Nayla's team ran scans. The Prylorian scientist's eyes gleamed with barely contained excitement. I can help you, she said, but my methods are unconventional. You'll need to undergo genetic augmentation, infusing your DNA with carefully selected alien genetic material. Louis hesitated, then nodded. Do it. The procedure was agony. Louis felt as if his body were being torn apart and reassembled on a cellular level. Through the haze of pain, visions assaulted him. Vast starships of impossible design, humans walking among the cosmos as if born to it. He came to with a gasp, his senses overwhelmed. Every color seemed more vivid, every sound crystal clear. Louis flexed his hand, marveling at the newfound strength coursing through his body. Dr. Valen stumbled from her own augmentation chamber, her scales rippling with new, barely contained energy. Her eyes had changed, becoming more predatory. The final fragment, Silas interrupted, his voice urgent. I've decrypted its location. It's on an artificial ring world, heavily guarded. Louis absorbed the intel, his enhanced mind rapidly formulating a plan. We go in undercover, infiltrate a labor convoy. They worked quickly, using salvaged materials to fabricate disguises. Boarding the transport was nerve-wracking, but their augmentations allowed them to pass the cursory scans. The ring world was a marvel of engineering and a monument to oppression. Countless species toiled under the watchful eyes of cybernetic overseers. Louis led his team through winding corridors, always alert for danger. At last, they reached the vault. A shimmering barrier of quantum energy blocked their path. Louis stepped forward, placing his hand against the field. Pain lanced through him as the alien security system attempted to overload his neural pathways. Louis pushed through, drawing on reserves of strength he never knew he possessed. The barrier flickered and died. They secured the fragment, but their victory was short-lived. A feral snarl echoed through the chamber. Louis turned to see Dr. Valen, her body contorting as her unstable mutation finally overwhelmed her. Valen, Louis shouted, fight it! But the xenobiologist was beyond reason. With terrifying speed, she lunged at Louis, claws extended. He barely managed to dodge, feeling the displaced air as her attack missed by millimeters. Alarms blared. Valen's rampage had alerted the Ringworld security systems. As chaos erupted around them, Louis realized he had no choice. He would have to use his own newfound abilities to stop his friend and secure their escape. Louis settled into a fighting stance, his augmented senses tracking Valen's every move. The final confrontation was about to begin. Louis' augmented senses crackled with energy as he faced the transformed Dr. Valen. Her eyes, once filled with scientific curiosity, now burned with feral hunger. She lunged, a blur of scales and claws. Louis pivoted, his enhanced reflexes allowing him to narrowly avoid her attack. The force of her charge sent tremors through the ring world's metal floor. Alarms blared, bathing the chamber in pulsing red light. Valen, please! Louis shouted, dodging another swipe. We can help you! But his words fell on deaf ears. Valen's mutation had consumed her mind, leaving only primal instinct. She snarled, saliva dripping from elongated fangs. Lewis's newfound strength surged through his muscles. He met Valen's next attack head-on, catching her claws in a grip that would have shattered normal human bones. The impact reverberated through the chamber, cracking support pillars. "Lewis!" Nyx's voice cut through the chaos. "The Ringworld systems are destabilizing." He barely had time to process her warning before Valen broke free, her tail whipping around to slam into his chest. Louis flew backward, crashing through a control panel in an explosion of sparks. Rajhek roared, charging into the fray. The massive alien cybernetic enhancements whirred as he grappled with Valen, giving Lewis a moment to catch his breath. "We need to end this," Silas shouted, frantically working to secure their escape route. Louis pushed himself to his feet, his augmented body already healing the worst of his injuries. He watched in horror as Valen's claws raked across Rajek's chest, leaving deep gashes. Time seemed to slow. Louis saw Valen's muscles coiling, preparing to lunge at Nyx. Without hesitation, Rajek threw himself into the mutant's path. The sound of tearing flesh filled the air. Rajek's massive frame shuddered as Valen's claws found their mark. But even as life drained from his eyes, the warrior's cybernetic arm clamped around Valen's throat. A sickening crack echoed through the chamber. Both Rajek and Valen collapsed to the floor, motionless. "No!" Lewis rushed to his fallen comrade, but Rajek's eyes were already glassy and unfocused. The Ringworld shuddered violently. Cracks spread across the walls and ceiling, threatening imminent collapse. "Lewis, we have to go!" Silas shouted, desperation in his voice. "The wormhole won't stay stable much longer." Anguish tore through Louis as he made the hardest decision of his life. He gently closed Rajek's eyes, then grabbed the Cosmoforge fragment. "I'm sorry, old friend," he whispered. With a final look at their fallen companions, Louis led Nyx and Silas through the shimmering portal of the emergency wormhole. Reality twisted and stretched around them as they hurtled across vast distances of space. They emerged into an unfamiliar star system, their ship tumbling out of control. Through the view screen, Louis glimpsed a massive vessel that could only be the enemy dreadnought, Arcalis. "Evasive maneuvers," he ordered, strapping himself into the pilot's seat. Weapons fire erupted from the Arcalis, filling space with deadly energy. Lewis pushed their battered ship to its limits, weaving through the barrage. But with each near miss, their systems deteriorated further. A verdant planet loomed before them, a blue and green jewel against the backdrop of space. Louis angled their descent, hoping against hope that they could lose their pursuers in the atmosphere. "Brace for impact," he shouted as their ship plummeted through roiling clouds. The last thing Louis saw before darkness claimed him was a sea of emerald treetops rushing up to meet them. Louis's eyes snapped open, his body aching from the impact. Dense foliage surrounded their crashed ship, muffling the sounds of pursuit from above. He pushed himself up, surveying the damage. "Status report," he croaked, helping Nyx to her feet. Silas emerged from the wreckage, cradling the Cosmoforge fragment. "Ship's beyond repair, but we're alive." A distant rumble echoed through the alien forest. The Arcalis was searching for them. "We need to move," Louis said, leading them into the undergrowth. They trekked for hours through the lush alien landscape, each step a struggle against exhaustion and injury. As night fell, they found shelter in a secluded cave. Nyx tended to their wounds with makeshift supplies. "Lewis, you're in bad shape. Without proper medical attention." Her words trailed off, but Louis understood the implication. His augmented body was failing, pushed beyond its limits. A ping from Silas's datapad broke the tense silence. "I've decrypted more of the Cosmoforge data," he announced. "There's a mention of something called the Zeri-Zetan Celestial Archive. It might be our only hope." Louis grimaced as he sat up. "What is it?" "An ancient repository of knowledge," Silas explained. "If we can access it, we might find a way to stop the enemy once and for all." They set out at dawn, following Silas's directions. The jungle grew denser, filled with bioluminescent flora that pulsed with alien rhythms. Strange creatures skittered in the shadows, always just out of sight. On the third day, they crested a hill and gasped. Before them stood a massive crystalline structure, its facets refracting sunlight in impossible patterns. "The archive," Silas whispered in awe. As they approached, a shimmering field enveloped them. Louis felt a presence probing his mind, sifting through his memories and intentions. A voice, more felt than heard, resonated within their skulls. "You seek knowledge to save your kind. Enter and be transformed." The crystal structure parted, revealing a chamber filled with swirling data streams and holographic displays. Louis stepped forward, drawn to a central pillar. "This will hurt," the voice warned. Louis placed his hand on the pillar. Agony exploded through his body as information flooded his consciousness. He saw the rise and fall of civilizations, the birth and death of stars, the very fabric of reality unfolding before him. When the torrent of knowledge finally subsided, Louis collapsed to his knees, gasping. His mind raced with newfound understanding. "I know what we must do," he said, his voice resonating with newfound power. "But the cost—" Nix helped him to his feet. "Whatever it takes, Louis, we're with you." Louis nodded, his willpower hardening. He turned to face his companions, his eyes now glowing with an inner light. "We're going to infiltrate the Arcalis," he declared, "and I'm going to become something more than human." The archive hummed around them, its ancient energies preparing for the transformation that would reshape the course of the war, and the very nature of humanity itself. Louis's consciousness exploded outward, untethered from his physical form. The archive's crystalline chamber dissolved into a kaleidoscope of impossible geometries and fractal patterns. He was everywhere and nowhere, his perception expanding beyond the limits of mortal comprehension. In this hyperdimensional realm, Louis sensed the fundamental forces of reality as living, breathing entities. Gravity pulsed like a cosmic heartbeat, while electromagnetic fields wove intricate tapestries of energy. Time itself became a tangible substance, flowing in all directions simultaneously. A nexus of infinite possibilities drew him inexorably forward. As he approached, Louis felt his identity unraveling, memories and experiences scattering like leaves in a cosmic wind. For a moment, panic gripped him. Was this the end? Then, from the depths of his being, ancient echoes stirred. Fragments of humanity's forgotten cosmic heritage resonated through his disintegrating consciousness. These primordial threads realigned, harmonizing his fragmented essence into a higher state of unified being. Louis ceased to be an individual. He became a nexus perceiver, existing at all points in space-time at once. From this vantage, he witnessed pivotal moments in humanity's history, not just its past, but its vast, forgotten future. He saw humanity's first steps beyond Earth, the initial stumbling expansion across the galaxy. But beyond that, he perceived cycles of growth, decline, and rebirth spanning eons. Humanity had not merely colonized a single galaxy, but had spread across countless universes, seeding itself throughout the vast omniverse. The Cosmoforge snapped into focus, its true nature revealed. It was one of many multidimensional artifacts left behind by ancient cosmic architects. These devices served as guideposts, nudging choice continuums toward a grand, transcendent synthesis. Louis understood now that humanity's apparent extinction in his original timeline was merely one branch in an infinite tree of possibilities. The human archetype endured, propagating itself across the metacosmos, forever striving toward reunification with its transcendent form. With newfound clarity, Louis discerned his purpose. He would become a shepherd, guiding humanity's reawakening across the omniverse. By subtly influencing causal streams, he could nurture humanity's cosmic potential without disrupting the delicate harmony of existence. Focusing his vast perception, Louis identified an optimal probability fork for the present galactic cycle. In this timeline, humanity would rediscover its cosmic lineage, initiating a new age of expansion and enlightenment. Louis exerted his will, gently modulating the causal resonances of this new reality. Key events realigned, setting humanity on a path toward multiverse mastery tempered by cosmic wisdom. As insurance against future setbacks, he embedded dimensional waypoints, subtle cues that would guide awakened humans toward their ultimate destiny. His task complete, Louis felt his essence beginning to disperse. The boundaries of his expanded consciousness blurred, merging with the infinite tapestry of the omniverse. As his final act of individuality, Louis cast his awareness back toward the physical realm he had left behind. In a cave on a distant alien world, Nyx and Silas watched in awe as Louis's body began to glow with otherworldly energy. His eyes snapped open, blazing with inner light as he gasped a single word. Awaken. Word. His body convulsed, arching off the cave floor as waves of energy coursed through him. Nyx and Silas scrambled back, shielding their eyes from the blinding radiance emanating from their transformed companion. Louis's form began to flicker and phase, becoming translucent one moment and solid the next. His voice, now a chorus of countless echoes, reverberated through the cavern. The streams, realigning, humanity's path, altered. With a final burst of light, Louis vanished, leaving Nyx and Silas alone in the suddenly dark and silent cave. Across vast gulfs of space and time, Louis's consciousness hurtled through dimensions beyond mortal comprehension. He perceived the intricate web of causality, each strand a potential future for humanity. With newfound cosmic insight, he gently nudged key events, setting in motion a chain reaction that would echo through millennia. On the distant world of Theta Aurigae, the consequences of Louis's actions manifested in cataclysmic fashion. The planet's ashen skies churned and roiled as a colossal vortex of crackling energy tore open the fabric of reality. Colonial settlers scattered, seeking shelter from the apocalyptic storm. Commander Karis Volkov, her face weathered by years of hardship, barked orders to her militia forces. "Move, you bastards! We need to reach that anomaly before it tears the whole damn planet apart." As Volkov's team fought their way through the maelstrom, the ground beneath their feet trembled. Ancient structures, long buried beneath Aurigae's desolate surface, burst forth in a symphony of grinding stone and screeching metal. "What in hell's name?" Volkov's second-in-command gasped as a towering obelisk erupted mere meters from their position. Before Volkov could respond, a piercing shriek filled the air. Through the swirling debris, she glimpsed a nightmarish form, a writhing mass of tentacles and cyber-augmented flesh. "Contact!" she roared, raising her pulse rifle. "Unknown hostiles, open fire!" The air filled with the staccato rhythm of weapons fire as Volkov's forces engaged the otherworldly horrors pouring through dimensional rifts. For every creature they cut down, two more took its place. At the heart of the vortex, Louis's essence coalesced, taking corporeal form once more. His senses, now attuned to the cosmic symphony of reality, immediately grasped the gravity of the situation. The subtle changes he had enacted had awakened something ancient and powerful. An Arco seed ship, a remnant of humanity's forgotten legacy. As Louis's avatar fully materialized, he locked eyes with the battle-worn Commander Volkov. In that fleeting moment, a lifetime of experiences passed between them. Volkov's finger tightened on her trigger, survival instinct overriding all else. The pulse round tore through Louis's newly formed body, momentarily disrupting his connection to the physical plane. The resulting metaphysical backlash consumed Volkov in a blinding flash, her atoms scattered to the cosmic winds. Louis staggered, his avatar flickering as he fought to maintain cohesion. Around him, the planet continued its violent transformation. The awakened Arcoseed ship's systems hummed to life, reshaping Aurigae into a nexus of interdimensional activity. Closing his eyes, Louis reached out with his expanded consciousness, interfacing with the Arcoseed ship's sentient matrix. Information flooded his mind. The ship's purpose, the cosmic cycles of human expansion and regression, and the dire consequences of his well-intentioned meddling. He had averted one dark future, but in doing so, he had unleashed new horrors upon this fledgling colony. The dimensional barriers were fracturing, allowing eldritch abominations to slip through the cracks. Louis's essence pulsed with purpose as he initiated a series of failsafe protocols. Energy surged through the Arcoseed ship's systems, erecting new dimensional safeguards even as it nurtured the seeds of humanity's resurgence. As the last of his transcendent energy drained away, Louis felt his memories beginning to fragment. His cosmic perspective narrowed, the infinite tapestry of reality fading from view. With his final moments of clarity, he gazed upon the transformed world of Theta Aurigae. Where once stood a dying colony, a shining beacon of human potential now took root. The settlers, their eyes wide with wonder and fear, emerged from their shelters to behold a world reborn. Ancient technologies melded with the familiar, offering glimpses of humanity's forgotten greatness. Louis's form shimmered, growing increasingly insubstantial. His last conscious thought was a fervent hope that this new iteration of humanity would rise to meet the challenges that lay ahead and perhaps one day reclaim their place among the stars. As Louis's essence scattered to the cosmic winds, the people of Theta Aurigae took their first tentative steps into a new era. Unbeknownst to them, the eyes of the universe now turned to watch their progress, waiting to see if this reborn fragment of humanity would fulfill its cosmic destiny.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.